I'm just going to say a bit about this course, Understanding Language MOOC, and then a little bit on about marketing side and the recruitment side of things. So Understanding Language, Learning and Teaching, it was a collaboration with the British Council, and at the time, this was the first time that I think a Future Learn course had done this kind of thing, because we had lots of talk about how technically it was going to work, and how each partner, Southampton and the British Council, were going to have equal footing in the course, and that led to a lot of kind of strange things with the design. But anyway, that's another story. So, collaboration, it's a 4-week course, and it's a taste of key concepts in language teaching and learning, with the idea that it explicitly promote our online masters in English language teaching. And so it came about with an explicit marketing focus. My background is as an educator, an online course design and course creation, and this was a bit strange for me, I must say, as a designer, when you have one of your most important purposes in creating the course is actually a promotional purpose. We've had 3 course runs. We've had 145,000 joiners, and over 67,000 learners have shown up for those 3 runs. So it's the biggest Southampton course, isn't it, in terms of joiners?
By far, and there's probably a few more learners, because these stats were possibly when it was.
No, this is running today.
Oh, you've updated
yeah, I've updated it.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was at one time one of the biggest ones that Future Learn had run, but the British Council keeps doing new MOOCs that just keep getting more and more people. So it was designed for native and non-native speaker language teachers, so we knew there would be a language teacher community coming in, and a large number would be from outside the UK. So essentially, the MOOC was used to launch worldwide a related part-time 2.5-year paid-for programme, our online masters in English language teaching. We already offer that in partnership with the British Council. And this MA had previously only been open to a small cohort. We had a particular relationship with the British Council Mexico. And so we had students in Mexico taking this course in nice numbers. And we wanted to open it up to the world, and a MOOC was chosen as the means to do this. We also obviously wanted to raise awareness of the University of Southampton brand. The British Council brand is pretty good in the world anyway, so we wanted to raise our own brand. So over the first 2 runs of the course, we had over 7,000 expressions of interest. Now, as Kate was saying, there was a link that Future Learn at the time were piloting, which you could click to register interest, and Future Learn collected all this information, passed it to us and the British Council to deal with that. And I have to say, 7,000 expressions of interest caused a bit of a detonation in our admissions team when they heard about that, as I'm sure you can imagine. But obviously we were very pleased about that. We also ran a scholarship trial in conjunction with this Future Learn pilot. We wanted to incentivise people to click that link and then follow through. And so we said that if you complete the Future Learn MOOC to Future Learn satisfaction, which means clicking 50% of the steps is done, then you may be eligible to apply for a scholarship, and that would mean a discount from your first year of fees. And so this proved very, very popular, and I think that's what generated so many expressions of interest. People were very interested to know more. While the course was running, there were lots of questions about that. How do I get the scholarship? How do I qualify for it? You know, what happens? And so it was very successful in that regard. The other things we did in terms of promotion, mainly in the first run, but also the second run, and things have changed a bit for the third run. So there's a kind of MA theme, the MAELT theme in the design of the course. So the content obviously reflects bits of the masters, but also the staff involved, a staff that you would meet through doing the online course, or indeed coming face to face with us as well. Some of the activities, I went to our online MA and I had a look at what we had, and I tweaked bits of it and put it explicitly in the MOOC, so there was this idea of connection. Obviously, we run the MA through Moodle. It's very, very different from Future Learn's platform. And a concern of mine from an early stage was that people would do the MOOC and come to the MA and be quite surprised. They do expect them to be quite similar. And so I wanted, as far as I could, to get some of the content quite similar in terms of look, anyway, and the way you responded to it on the course. We had dedicated information steps in the course. So obviously this area where you could register interest, and various points in the course where we mentioned the MA. We had an interview with the student who'd done the MA, and that kind of thing, which was built around the content. We had an email campaign. We emailed everyone. That was our marketing department that did that. We also had a live chat with academics who teach on the online masters, so that people could come and actually ask questions about what it was like, what they'd study, how similar to the MOOC, all those kinds of things. And that was very interesting to see who came and what kinds of questions they asked. So I've got some results really from the kind of first and second run really, because as Kate alluded to, there's a long time it takes to convert people from doing a MOOC and perhaps seeing them on this kind of course, or perhaps you never see them. So obviously we had 58,000 people, not learners actually, joiners for that first run. Of those we had 105 applications for the online MA and 60 came via the MOOC. 45 offers were made for January 2015. That's the semester 2 intake. For our online MA we have 2 intakes in September and January, and 27 came via the MOOC, and eventually 17 students enrol, with 12 coming from the MOOC. 28 either withdrew their applications because their English wasn't good enough or because they were not a scholarship winner. I should say at this point we also talked to people who were interested in taking the MA, and we discovered that it's kind of obvious really, there's a very big jump from a 4-week free course to a 2.5-year part-time master's. And a lot of people said to us then and say to us continually, what do you have that's not a master's? What do you have that's in the middle? That's maybe a certificate or a shorter course, something that's online. We really want something else, but we don't have the money for a master's, we don't have the time for a master's. All those issues, people who are doing lifelong learning, they're working, they've got families, other commitments, they can't commit to that kind of thing. And so, this is a really important thing, I think, for modern languages to learn, in terms of if we want to see conversions, we need to be meeting the learners as well. As we're saying, we have this course, come and do this. So we have 40 confirmed starters in September 2015, and half of whom come from outside of Mexico, and mostly through the MOOC. So for us, we're really, really happy. So what we wanted to do was get numbers onto our online MA. Most importantly, we wanted to make it an international cohort. We wanted to expand it from Mexico, and we're really happy we've done that. Obviously, Mexico's still hanging on very tightly to that relationship and to that master's, but it's been really, really good for us. What's also been interesting is the other kinds of impact, which has also been really important. Our YouTube channel, which I alluded to before, we've had over 50,000 views there. So that's really just our end-of-week tutor reviews and our live sessions. So in the first run of the course, we had just 2 live sessions, I think. And then after the course ran, all the academic team got tremendously excited by the live sessions. And so in the second run, we had 4 live sessions, which was a big strain on the team. So in the third run, we only had 1 live session. But people keep hitting these recordings. They love watching them, they're really interesting. And so we're getting a lot of views. Facebook groups have been set up, at least 2 that I know of. These are learners who just wanted to set up their own group. They wanted to keep the discussion going. And so they set up their own MOOC Facebook group. The British Council has now set up their own Facebook group for all of their MOOC users. And their own Facebook group has 1.5 million people on it, I think. So they're starting to really push this at the British Council and make this much bigger. We noticed that learners were cascading their own knowledge to their own students. Obviously, a large number of our cohort were language teachers. And of course, they wanted to teach. And so they wanted to share their experience in the comments. And frequently, they would mention they'd go back to their own classroom and the things they were going to try out, new things they were going to try, or just reflections on their own practice and how they were going to just shape what they were doing. And that was really, really interesting to see that coming out. And of course we wanted to see that. The MOOC has been part of the British Council push for MOOCs. The British Council are really going to go for it over the next year. They're going to do a large number of MOOCs, and they've decided that this is really something they want to get into, at least in the short term. Whether that continues in the long term will depend on their analysis of how successful it goes. But what's been really nice for us is to be part of that push. And in Modern Languages we have a very good relationship with the British Council, which continues through sharing ideas about how the MOOCs have worked and how they've coped with running their own courses. And certainly with our Modern Languages staff who took part in the creation of the course, it's quite interesting. Some of them have reported an effect on their face-to-face teaching. And so one of our contributors mentioned that the notion of creating and essentialising the output, I suppose, in your lesson, and then having discussion around it, or a task or something else, was something that we really drilled into him in creation of the MOOC. Talk about something, get it down to the essence, and then the activities and the discussion and interaction. And this is something that he's been building into his master's courses now, in terms of his actual structure of his classes. A lot of the academics who worked on the course talked about this notion of clarity of communication. So, working with theoretical linguists, there's lots of jargon that can be going into the content, which shouldn't really be there for a lay audience. It needs to be approachable. And so that notion of clarity of communication, they said to me, was important, and it's what you should be thinking about anyway, but you had to really focus your thinking because of creation for the MOOC. Also, a new means of communication. So some of the feedback is that it's been fantastic to reach new audiences, especially audiences who are so passionate, equally passionate about the topic as the people creating the content, which has been hugely rewarding. And also an impact for research. We've, our academic team have seen hits on their papers going up, their, sales of their books going up, and these are things which really, really count. And that's been really important. And then, of course, this notion of reaching new audiences. People that you wouldn't necessarily reach normally, you don't see at conferences, perhaps you don't see in the classroom, but they're out there and they're interested and excited by your topic. And so it's been hugely rewarding and I think impactful in lots of ways, both tangible and intangible, within modern languages for us. Thank you.
I think it's interesting to see who goes into the pricing model or the freemium model, you have something for free, but actually if you want the analytics for your learning and if you want to see how you're doing against your other students, you have to pay for that. Is that something you're thinking about?
Well, as to the sort of freemium models, FutureLearn and I know are very clear that the learner experience comes first, but in that it's got to work really, really well. So rather than adding in new functionality that may or may not work well, what they try and do is work on making what they do work even better.
And also the way the platform is designed and the pedagogical modeling which is based makes it not too easy to implement a feature that analyzes learners' performance, because there are other platforms like edX or Coursera that they are based, the progression of the learner is much more traceable than in FutureLearn. FutureLearn you can comment as much as you want, but you don't get too many tests or too many things that you can really measure, because it's as Kate says, there's a kind of a priority in the learning experience rather than in the performance awareness of the analytics of it.
We're not designing for credit right now. If you wanted to, you can put in as many quizzes, tests and exams into the course that you want. It's just that's not what we're doing right now, but it's all available to us. And we had a go with Web Science. We developed quizzes, tests, end of course tests, and a full exam.
What happened to the peers assessment steps? Did people just give those up, or are they still being done?
It works terrifically well in developing your research project because we ask people to put some early examples. We lead them very carefully down to where they've got about a 200-word summary of what they're thinking of doing their research in, and then they evaluate each other's research projects. It works terrifically well.